Now let's look at converting a terminal decimal into a fraction. So remember, a terminating decimal is one where the decimal ends. So for instance, 26 thousandths. And so when we look, or sorry, 26 hundredths. And the way I like to do these is just by thinking of the word name. We would call that, if we did it correctly, 26 hundredths. So that means the fraction is going to be 26 over 100. Now, the next step you need to know is that you can reduce that fraction. So anytime you have a fraction where the top and bottom, the numerator and denominator, are both divisible by a common factor, it's called, so by the same number, you can divide by that number. So here, 26 and 100 are both even numbers. That means they're both divisible by 2. So we can divide each of them by 2 to end up with 13 over 50. Now we have the 13 and the 50. There are no common factors. In other words, there are no numbers that divide the 13 and the 50. So we leave it as 13 over 50. And we'll be doing some more of these in the next couple chapters as well, where we reduce down fractions. Okay, so let's write the following as fractions or mixed numbers. So A, well, how would we say that? We would say it's 3/10. So we're going to write that as 3 over 10. There are no numbers that divide both the 3 and the 10, so that is as reduced as we can go. Okay, next one, well, this ends in the thousandths position, which means if we were going to say it, we would say 311 thousandths. So we will write it as 311 thousandths. And once again, there's no common factor. There's no number we can divide the top and bottom by. So we're going to leave it like that. All right, next one, 275 thousandths. Well, this one, the top and bottom, I can see are both divisible by 5. So let's do that. Now you could do that by hand, but I'm going to cheat and use my calculator here. So I get 55 over 200. Now I can see both of those are still divisible by 5. So I'm going to divide by another 5. And that's going to leave me with 11 over 40. Now I'm at a place where I can't further reduce the fraction. All right, last one. So we want to represent this as a mixed number. We have 32 whole of something, and then we have 433 thousandths. All right, now what if you were asked a question like this? Which is larger? 3/4, so we have a fraction there. Okay, remember that 3/4 could also be written like this. It means the same thing. Or 0.8, which would be 8/10. Well, you want to convert either them both into fractions, but actually that wouldn't even work here, because then you would just get 8 over 10 and you would still be wondering. So the best thing to do here then is to convert both to decimals. Convert both to decimals. So let's do that. So we want to convert the 3 over 4 or 3/4 into a decimal. So we're going to go 3 divided by 4. And what's that going to give us? So we can go 7 times into 30, which leaves us with 2 left over. And a 5. So we end up with 75 hundredths. So now we're looking at 75 hundredths, or, well, 0.8, we can add another 0 to make that 80 hundredths. So now we're looking at 75 or 80. That's going to be a less than. And the question asked which is larger, so we would say 80 hundredths, or I guess we could say 8/10 is the larger number, just because 8/10 was in the original question. It means the same thing as 80 hundredths, but we'll write it this way. And that is the end of chapter 4.